So the other day, or, well, I think it was more last week, Empty Box did a video on setups. Well, specifically, how setups are somehow controversial in sim racing. Because some people have got it in their heads that fixed setup series are more fair than open setup series because evil physics exploits, paid setups, and so on. There is this thinking of, well, if I have the same setup as this guy who has 5k I rating, I, as a 1.4k I rating guy, should have a chance to be competitive. You know, it's the same for everybody and all that. Fixed setup series aren't fair, per se, because one guy might gel with the setup because he likes his car to handle like a canal boat. You might prefer pointy front end and an unstable rear, for instance, and you won't be able to adapt. We all have different driving styles. The most obvious two things that spring to mind here are Clark and Senna. One was the fastest guy by a country mile by driving smoothly. The other was the fastest guy by a country mile by wringing the neck of the thing on every qualifying lap. For whatever reason, sim racers have this feeling of, this guy's a second and a half faster than me. It's got to be his setup. He's got to have a much faster setup than me. I need his setup to get close to what he's doing. But the fact is, that guy you're chasing is just unbelievably fast. One statistic that Empty Box gave in his video is that 75% of the people on iRacing have an I rating of 2000 or below. That's 75% of 100,000 users. The 75,000 of 100,000 are average. And let's be honest, I rating isn't as important as people think it is. Sure, we've all had those days where nothing has gone right for you and you've lost 200 I rating in one afternoon, and that is definitely frustrating because it happened to me about a month or so ago. But you really need to stop worrying that you lost a trivial amount because you came 9th or something like that and you were just genuinely slower than everybody else. All it is a matchmaking algorithm. I beat dudes with a 2.6k I rating at the Bathurst 12 hour almost a month ago because I was faster. And I've got 1.9k, something like that. Skill still plays a massive part. Just because you have a pro eSports setup or a VRS PDS setup, you know, one of these paid subscription setups, doesn't mean you're going to be winning every race. And I've won 5 competitive sim racing races in the last year or so when I started going more online as opposed to against the AI. Winning is a lot of hard work, fixed or open, and most of mine have been through sheer luck. It's not to say that setup doesn't make you quicker, because it does. I mean, it absolutely does. If you max out the wing at somewhere like Monza, you're going to be going 2 seconds a lap slower. Setups do make you quicker to a point. And that's what I want to show you today. Pro eSport versus average sim racer. Through being a member of Zancho SimSport, I am one of the fastest sim racers in the world. Friends. So I've borrowed a setup from Zancho that was used in the GT Pro series, which is the top level rFactor 2 GT series. It's being used purely to see how an average sim racer, myself, compares to one of the best in rFactor 2. And the guy I borrowed it from raced in the Le Mans Virtual, and he's driving in Formula E Accelerate for Nissan, so he's a top 10 driver overall in rFactor 2. So the person I'm comparing myself to here is no slouch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into rFactor 2, I'm going to get into the rig, I'm going to make a setup for the McLaren 720, round Imola, and use my limited setup ability to create something that I can drive on and fits my driving style. Then I'm going to load the actual proper eSport setup and see how much slower or faster I am compared to the best of the best. This should be interesting. Let's see what happens. Alright then, live commentary over a hot lap of Imola. So this is the lap I did where I set the car up myself. So it was basically just anti-roll bars and camber suspension. I played with some of the bump stops and the ride height just to see what I can do. So coming into Tamburello here, I'm able to attack the sausage curbs on the inside, but hitting the ones on the inside of turn 2 sort of compromises the exit. Load of understeer coming through turn 3. And again, that's just going to ruin top speed up towards Villeneuve. So I get the car right to the outside. Back end kicks out across the sausage curbs again, and more understeer through the second part of Villeneuve, and then up towards Tosa. 3/10 up on my best lap. I did sort of a banker lap to see what was what. Through Tosa again, car starting to struggle with getting the power down, very twitchy. It was kind of like I wanted to understeer through some corners and oversteer through others, but up the hill towards Piratella, down to 3rd, managed to get the thing turned in, had to take a second bite of the cherry there, which ruined consistency over the entire lap. But down the hill now towards Acqua Minerale, hardest part of the track, Sort of got it thrown in, but then had to second guess the second part across the curb, trying to get a cut track there because it's really easy to. Then up the hill towards Variante Alta, which is also very, very difficult. And because of the way the suspension was set up, I couldn't really attack the sausage curves as much as I wanted to. Very slow through the left-hander, and then tricky to get the power down. But it's so fast from here down towards the last two corners that if you're slow on the exit, you're going to be slow at the end. Such as the way that acceleration and stuff works. But into the first Rivatsa here. Nice and simple. Car understeering through the second part. Then get the power down. And then 1.1 up on my banker. Wiping the sweat away from my top lip. It was quite a sweaty job. And then across the line, 1.2-ish up on my banker. So that's a 143 there. So I got out of the car here and then loaded up the eSports setup. And this is the first lap I attempted to do in said eSports setup. And that's how twitchy the rear was. So I had to spend some time getting used to it. A lot of laps getting used to it. So... and by a lot, I mean like 12 or so, because I kept crashing it. Tried to learn what the car would do, what the car wouldn't do. So this is the first full-time lap I managed to do. Well, not crashing, but already nearly 100th up going into Tamburello. Kind of messed up the braking here. Lost the 10th or so, but so much easier to get the power down. A lot more turning ability through turn 3. So I'm up almost 2/10 coming up to Villeneuve. Bit twitchy over the top, but the car sort of reacted in the same way as it did on the first lap. And again, all the time's been made up on the exits of the corners here. Into Tosa. Lost a bit of time here because of the way the car was set up. But like before, so much better with getting the power down. So the rear suspension was set up a lot better. Gaining time all the way up towards Piratella. The car felt a lot more responsive through here. Didn't want to understeer, didn't want to float wide. And because this is the part where I missed a gear shift, I'm up 3/10. Managed to have the car a bit more under control through Acqua Minerale. Gained way more time there just by actually to keep the speed up. Missed the apex on the second part, but not too much to worry about. But here's where I made so much more time because I was able to absolutely hammer that inside sausage curb on both corners at the chicane. Now up 7.5 as we start the run from the chicane down to the final two corners here. Just making more and more up as we come down the hill under the bridge. Hard on the brakes for the first Rivatsa corner. Chuck it in. No understeer to worry about. Run it nice and wide so you open up the second part. And then absolutely mash the throttle out the other side. Let the traction control do all the hard work. Up 9/10 now. Just gaining more and more time. So quite happy with that lap. So that was now down to it's a 142.2. So I thought I'll go for another one. Gain some time into Tamburello here. Just hit that sausage curve a bit too hard. Tried to be clever, so I lost all the time I gained. Actually down here by sort of 0.5 or so. Up to Villeneuve. I think I tried the same thing again. Gained some time back, but the sausage curves on the inside of the second part upset the car. Tosa, I drop it down into first. For even more torque on the exit. And there we go. 2 seconds. Oh, sorry, not 2 seconds, but 2/10 found almost instantly. I wish it was 2/10. Piratella. Car behaving absolutely perfectly through here. And there was a bit too careful coming through Acqua Minerale just to stop the back end from sliding out. Probably knocked the rear ride height down a bit. So I lost quite a lot here. Back up the hill towards the chicane. See how much more I can get away with hitting the curb. Cut it quite hard. Ran a bit too wide on the exit. Lost a bit more time. So I could probably get a mid 42 if I really worked at it. No, sorry, not a mid 42, a mid 41 if I really worked at it. But these were just like initial laps. Like I say, if I did work at it, I'll probably get a 41.5 or something like that. But I think the fastest lap in the actual GT Pro race was Arne Schonflit, mid 39, so I'm way off the pace. But hopefully this shows you what it's like, and you know, like and subscribe and all that. Thanks to the patrons of the channel. Want to join them? All the links are in the description along with Discord. So, in the words of Box, bye.